schedule instead. And so the table 4-4 will be solely for transit-oriented development. And the only change that you will see there is for the single-family detached ship-defined units and the multifamily ship-defined units. Those incentives will change to 100%. In the West Market Area Redevelopment District schedule, again, now the new title will be with the addition of the vacant parcel incentive zone schedule, and there will be no change otherwise because there was already 100% incentivized single-family detached and multifamily ship-defined units. In the suburban tables, this is what the summary looks like. Again, it's the same where the multifamily is category is only increased in the standard fee, and it remains unchanged in the other fee schedules. And the rule is the same. You have in the rule, you actually have an additional ship-defined large lot single family detached, which would also receive the 100% incentive. And the multifamily in the standard rural fee schedule would see that increase in fees. There are just minor tweaks in the text that needs to be amended so they can be consistent with the table changes, and you'll see these two presented in this slide and in the next slide. And with that, we hope that you will find that the proposed ordinance is consistent with the Pasco County Comprehensive Plan and recommend the approval of the ordinance to the Board of County Commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, before you take any comment from the Planning Commission members, the clerk will read the proof of publication into record.
Okay, go ahead.
Item P2 was published in the Tampa Bay Times on March 13, 2020, and item P3 was published in the Tampa Bay Times May 10, 2020. Thank you.
Thank you.
Also on this item, we do have two callers on the phone.
All right, good. Thank you very much. So do we have the first caller online?
One of our callers has hung up. Let's try, do you want to start taking public comment at the moment?
Do we have somebody there to speak?
We do.
Okay, sure. So come forward and state your name, address.
Caller, you're on the phone. Would you please state your name and address for the record?
Yes, this is Ed Rogers with Design Consultants. My address is 20525 Amberfield Drive, Land O'Lakes, Florida.
All right, and you need to be sworn, please. So if you would please raise your right hand and be sworn.
Okay.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, your 3 minutes will begin now.
Okay, thank you. So, good afternoon, members of the commission. Again, I'm Ed Rogers of Florida Design Consultants, and I'm speaking on behalf of Crown Community Development. Crown Community Development currently has two projects under active development that are fully entitled and have multifamily components. Chapel Crossings is in the urban service area, and Watergrass is in the suburban area. In both projects, Crown has contracts pending with market rate apartment developers who are on the cusp of moving forward. And I wanted to relate to you that I have reviewed the video footage of the Board of County Commissioners workshop that was held on February 25th, where staff was given board direction to move forward with these mobility fee adjustments and other measures. And it struck me the other day that we were living in a different economy back in February. In fact, the first item on the workshop agenda that day was the county budget for the next fiscal year. And the OMB presented to the board a glowing picture of the economy, which was very vibrant at the time. The COVID-19 crisis and its significant economic impacts hadn't yet made its imprint on anybody's consciousness at that point. But we now live in a really different world where more than 30 million Americans have sought unemployment benefits because of the effects of the coronavirus on the economy. Now, the great uncertainty that surrounds the nature and timing of any recovery from the current economic cataclysm makes deals like Crown's pending multifamily sales jeopardized. A mobility fee increase at this time could be just the thing to scuttle those deals. So on Crown's behalf, I would ask the Commission to consider the currently proposed mobility fee adjustments, regardless of whatever their underlying good intentions are, to be tabled until the coronavirus infections are on a demonstrable decline and the nation's economic picture going forward is on a more certain and positive track. And that concludes my comments, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions of the gentleman that just spoke? All right. Do we have someone else there, Denise?
Yes, we have Barbara Wilhite, who is probably still on as a panelist, and we'll give her 3 minutes to provide her comments. So if you would please state your name and address for the record, and we'll have the clerk swear you in. And you'll have to unmute yourself.
Can't hear you, Barbara.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. Barbara Wilhite, 6327 Grand Boulevard, Newport Richey, Florida, 34652.
And do you
Okay.
swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Your 3 minutes will start now.
Thank you. Good afternoon again. I am as well here speaking to you on behalf of Crown Communities, a longtime client of mine, maybe a little different perspective. Crown Communities entitled Watergrass in 2006, including multifamily. And then many years ago, around 2013, we entitled Chapel Crossings. The point I make there is that, these projects have been entitled for a while with multifamily. I think a lot of the concern that we've seen over the multifamily issue is rezonings, where people are seeking plan amendments and rezonings, not so much the projects that is entitled long ago. So Crown finally gets the opportunity to move these projects forward and get contracts on them, and then comes COVID, and then comes this potential increase. So it's a significant issue to them. They've been good partners for the county. They have produced Seven Oaks, which is an outstanding project, a tax base that has been maintained there over the years. We have letters from the property appraiser saying Seven Oaks has maintained property values the best of all developments in Pasco County. So they're a good partner of ours, and what this increase would do is kind of stick them in the eye in a time when there's so much uncertainty right now. So I would also state that I have concerns about continuing to burden the urban service area when I read in the paper, that the struggles that the school districts, the teachers, the students, their families, the administrators are trying to deal with the overcrowding that we've produced by these policies that we continue to perpetuate and not really review. We have undercapacity schools in Hudson, in areas where you're about to raise, if this commission and the board goes along with these fees, in areas where you're about to raise the multifamily rate for market rate apartments. And we have, I read in the paper the struggles about fights over who's going to get to use these ball fields at our parks in the urban service area, when we have ball fields that we don't have those struggles with in other parts of the county. So I think that the timing isn't good, and I think that doing just a policy change in a vacuum and not really doing it in a coordinated manner is going to potentially cause unintended consequences. And so those are my thoughts on behalf of my client, long-term client at Crown Communities, as well as myself.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. And do we have any questions to Barbara?
Yeah, I have one. This is Peter Hansel.
Go ahead, Peter.
Your main concern is that this will be an additional financial burden, not just on your client, but on others within the county? Is that the concern?
Yeah, that is the concern, that we've got delicate balance of they're trying to hold projects together and hold deals together during COVID, and this is an increase that's come at a time that may scuttle those deals. And then I just worry about the overall policy aspect of unintended consequences of the action, especially beyond the urban service area.
So do you see this as a financial burden? I read in here where it's basically looking at, we call it the urban transit development in West Harbor's market area. Plus they also indicated that the redevelopment, there was a sentence in here about the central Pasco area also. So what you're addressing in yours by saying, the concern I have is that you have some evidence that this would be a financial burden to developers moving forward. And in essence, they're not getting anything in return from the county. They're just paying additional fees. I don't know if that's clear. Go ahead.
So Chapel Crossings is in the urban service area, and that's a 7% increase. And Watergrass Promenade is in the suburban area, and that's a 17% increase proposed. And yes, my client has told me that this could be a burden to their pending deals and scuttle the deals. I'm speaking on behalf of that client. I don't have any knowledge myself. My client had some outpatient surgery yesterday, so he couldn't attend this virtual meeting himself, so I'm attending on his behalf.
Any other comment? Peter, do you have more you want to say?
I'm reading on page, and it says G, one of the goals is to provide for the creation and preservation of affordable housing for all of Pasco County residents, particularly low to moderate income households. I fail to see how adding additional fee to developers would benefit low to moderate income households. That's my comment. So, especially at the
So can I, this is David Goldstein. Can I explain?
please.
I think we're confusing two concepts here. One, Barbara's talking about an increase in what I'll call standard or market rate apartments. The argument is that by increasing the fees on standard or market rate apartments, adversely affect these deals that Crown has entered into.
Thank you.
There's a separate, as part of the same ordinance, there's a reduction in the mobility fees for ship-to-find, affordable, multifamily, and single family. In other words, get up for standard apartments, but they're going down for ship-to-find, affordable apartments. In fact, they're going down so much they're going down to zero.
Okay.
So I don't think Barbara's talking about that reduction. I don't think she's a that reduction. I think she's saying it's the increase in the standard fees that is causing concerns for her client.
That's correct. It's the standard market rate.
The sentence you read was about the reduction for single family and affordable multifamily. And let me just make one more comment.
Yeah, please, three.
These two, this increase and decrease are somewhat linked together. And the reason for that is because our mobility fee system is a system of subsidies. In other words, it uses other revenue sources, gas tax, sales tax, to buy down or subsidize certain. So in order to offset this reduction, affordable multifamily, affordable single family, and the additional jobs in the Harbor West Market area, there has to be a corresponding increase somewhere else to make it revenue neutral. If for some reason the board did not approve the increase for standard market rate multifamily, we may not be able to approve a decrease for the West Market area or the affordable multifamily and single family. In other words, they're linked together because there's a limited budget of subsidies. Am I making sense at all?
Yeah, I think what you're saying is very clear to me anyway, David. This is Chuck Gray. I have a sort of the same perspective on it that Barbara has, in that I think this is probably not a good time to increase fees to anybody that wants to bring a benefit to our county. I think it's a factor that would discourage them and to want them to go somewhere else. We need growth, and obviously we have to manage growth, but we need healthy growth. I don't think, I think I've probably been here longer than most of us in this county, so I know back when we first started building the homes, we thought it was a great idea to build $6,000 homes and sell them the home and the lot for $6,000. Everybody was happy, but the problem is that we ended up with a lot of low-income type housing.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that we're sitting there with now. I'm not sure we need to continue to encourage more low-income housing. I think we need to encourage healthy, self-sufficient development, because a healthy economy rises all boats. And I just think that's where our focus should be. Our focus shouldn't be the lowest common denominator. And so I think this is a bad time to do it. I'm not saying there's not a good time, but a lot of people are hurting right now, including the people that are normally in good shape. And I just think this is not a good time. And I think, as was said before, it might have been a good time when the county first started thinking about it, planning for it, because the economy was booming. But right now, until we get through this crisis, I think we need to rethink about it. There's a lot of people out there that aren't getting a regular paycheck. And, these contractors and construction workers, mechanics, all kinds of people like that. And we need to think about growth for them and not so much about just cheap housing. That's my thing.
Mr. Chairman, it's Chris Poole. I'll go on the record as saying I agree with you, sir. I think that, the economic uncertainty of what we're dealing with on the backside of COVID and reading that Florida state sales tax has been decimated in March, and it's supposed to be, the numbers are supposed to be even worse in April, as well as a bunch of other different factors. I really think it's when this item was looked at back in February, it might have been an appropriate time to consider these changes at that time. But given the uncertainty that we're facing, I really think this is an issue that should be tabled and picked up at a later date.
All right, anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, it's Jamie Girardi. A couple of things to add here on this one. Not only just the timing of the whole thing, but I really, and I raised this point because I think I raised this point when similar mobility fee discussions came up on multifamily and on apartments along the 54, 56 corridor several months ago. You have a lot of developers that have projects that are vested in that corridor as well as in the county. They got vested and they were getting pushed by county staff to increased density to, they were encouraging multifamily in the density. And now these people have these projects vested. Barbara talked about Crown, and I'm sure there's several others that either have projects under contract, have projects that are vested, but now they come in and now they want to get a slap on the wrist to these people that have these properties. I don't know if there's anything that can be done with the grandfathering provision. I don't know. It looks like that, if these rates are adopted, they go into effect in August. But I just think you really hit those people hard that have projects and contracts even to sell projects. It's timing, and I don't think it's good.
Michael, you were going to say something?
Yeah, so I have a couple questions of staff. I mean, the way I'm reading this, these table changes, the vast majority of it is going to incentivize the development, which therefore is going to help our economy here locally. Is that correct from the staff?
I'm sorry, Mr. Cox, could you repeat your question?
So the majority of what I'm seeing in the table here is the proposed incentives are mainly going to 100% being incentivized. So the majority of projects would actually receive a boost, correct?
Can I try to answer that, Alexandra? So I think you're correct, Mr. Cox, that there are more decreased fees in this table than there are increases. That's an accurate statement. However, you have to look at the amount of that type of development. So yes, the West Market area fees are going to be going down under these tables. The affordable housing fees will be going down under these tables. But the percentage of development that we get in Pasco County that's in the West Market area or that's affordable housing is likely less than it is for market rate apartments. So you're correct in one sense that there's more fees, there's more categories of fees that are going down with this proposal. But in terms of the amount of development that would receive a decrease, it's probably lower than what will be receiving an increase in terms of the amount of development that would normally occur. Now, I think we kind of skipped over one important point that Alexandra made, which is the fees for multifamily, T&D, Mudroom, TOD are not increasing, and the county and to get to Mr. Girardi's point, a lot of the projects that were vested where staff was encouraging density, they tended to be those projects that were Mudroom, the TOD projects. So those fees are not increasing at all. You could argue that they now have a bigger incentive relative to standard multifamily because their fees are not increasing. So you're correct in one sense, but there is still a significant amount of standard multifamily that will receive an increase under these fee schedules.
Okay, well, let me then comment a little bit further then. The whole premise behind doing this mobility fee, and I remember it pretty vividly, was to really try to focus incentives where we wanted development. So, and it has worked. I mean, there's no question that whole idea has helped a lot. The thing that I think about here is that there has been a big boom in the apartment developments around the county. In fact, I think a lot of people think that maybe we have too much, but I am a believer in the market, and the market will determine how much is too much. But one thing that does come to mind is that these developments have routinely been built and then sold for significant amounts of money per unit. When you read in the paper about some of these developments selling for $300,000 and $400,000 per unit, it seems to me like that this increase is not going to have that big of an effect on it. That's number one. Number two, David, correct me if I'm wrong, but the ones that are already entitled, all they need to do is to pull building permits before this ordinance goes into effect, and it would not, correct?
That's correct, that if they pull a building permit before August 10th, which would be the earliest it could go into effect, it would not be subject to these increases. In addition, the planning commission could recommend a delayed effective date till January 1, or the board could recommend a delayed effective date till January. A lot of our impact fee increases tend to take effect on January 1. So there's nothing magical about the August 10th date other than that's the soonest it could happen under state statute. But is it possible for planning commission or the board to recommend a January 1 effective date? Yes, and that's kind of our historical practice, is to implement new fees effective January 1. And if they got their building permit before that effective date, they would not be subject to these increases. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And so, I mean, I think that, you know, obviously it started with the BCC, and given the fact that, you know, obviously their final say on it, I'm more apt to support what we've been shown here today.
All right, anybody else have a comment?
So just one more comment, Mr. Chair. Just a reminder of what your role is on this particular ordinance. Your role is to determine whether the ordinance is consistent with the Pasco County Comprehensive Plan. So you need to make a recommendation on that issue one way or the other. If you are inclined to send some additional comments to the board, we can include that in your recommendation. But you do need to make an affirmative determination about whether the ordinance is consistent or inconsistent with the comprehensive plan.
Chairman,
Okay, yes.
this is Nectarios Pitos, Planning and Development. I just wanted to echo David's comments and mention too that the increase in fees on the standard table, right, and the no increase in fees on the moderate T&D and TOD tables results in an encouragement of development to go into the types of patterns, such as the mixed-use trip reduction measures, the traditional neighborhood design, transportation-oriented development. That sort of encouragement into moderate T&D and TOD is still consistent with the comprehensive plan, which we mentioned at the beginning during the presentation. The other thing that I just wanted to mention really quick was with regard to the West Market area and the redevelopment and vacant land incentives. Even for multifamily, the standard will still be zero in those areas. So they will not pay a fee if it's redevelopment or if it's vacant land development. Even if you're going to build a multifamily apartment building, let's say, it would still be zero in the West Market area.
And what about single family?
I don't believe we're changing anything with regard to single family.
So I'm trying to.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, to be clear, if it's in the West Market area, redevelopment area, or the vacant and set on, it's zero even for single family. The board made a very strong statement that the harbors or West Market area should be treated differently, and they're doing everything they can to incentivize development in that area. So the fee, whether it's single family or multifamily, if it's in that area, it's going to be zero.
So why are we calling it affordable housing?
So that's why I want to make sure we're clear. I think these are two different issues. Okay, so in the West Market area, that incentive to make the fee zero applies whether it's affordable or market rate or high end. It's an incentive for the area to encourage it to redevelop and encourage infill in that area. Doesn't matter whether it's affordable, market rate, and it could be $1 million homes in the West Market area, and it would still be zero. Because our board wants to send a strong statement that that area is in need of development redevelopment, infill development, any form of development. That it needs a jolt, regardless of price, okay?
Okay. Well, that was my major concern, is I just don't wanna, I don't see where the county benefits from,
Right, so.
reducing the tax base.
Right. So for the West Market area, you got to think about the area differently, because most of what we talked about today doesn't apply in the West Market area. The West Market area is going to be zero if it's redevelopment or in the incentive zone. It's going to be zero regardless of the form of development and regardless of the type of development. The affordable housing incentive, the affordable housing incentive is really more applicable to the rest of the county.
Okay.
That request is if you have an affordable housing project in Wesley Chapel or Trinity or Northeast or area around Zephyr Hills, those fees will now be reduced to zero if they qualify as ship-to-fine affordable housing.
Okay. So, what are the boundaries of the West Market area?
Alexander, do you have a map that shows those boundaries, or Terry, can you pull up a map? Does it say the map? It's it's generally everything to the west of Little Road. But that's a very general statement, but I think Alexander has a map, or
Okay.
somebody might have a map.
So it doesn't go as far as 41.
No, it does not include 41.
Okay.
I have the map right here.
You
You want me to just share my screen?
Yeah.
Hold on. All right, actually, I don't have
do like that.
Oh, now I do. Okay. So, can everybody see my map now?
Yep.
So this here is the West Market area. As David said, generally Little Road, but it also extends a little further than Little Road, some areas.
Okay.
This is the West Market area.
Okay. Does it include the green up where it says north?
That's the North Market area. So the North Market is what you see in green there. Central is what you see in this lighter blue color. South Market is this lighter green color here. And of course, East Market is way out on the east side of the county.
So to answer your question, Mr. Chair, it would not include the area that's in dark green.
Okay. All right. Well, that explains it a little bit better to me. I don't feel quite as concerned as I did, as it sounded to me in the initial that we were trying to encourage just low-income housing, basically, in the West Market area. So I wanted to make.
So I want to be clear, Mr. Chair, this isn't just about trying to encourage low-income housing. If I had to summarize what the changes they're doing, they're trying to for development in the West Market area by increasing the incentives in that area. It's trying to encourage more mixed-use multifamily in the form of TND, TOD, and it is also encouraging affordable housing. That's the third prong of it. But say that it's only about affordable housing would not be accurate. And to offset those additional incentives, another fee increase. And so the first proposal was that increase would be on standard multifamily.
Okay, so just for clarification purposes, I'm sure somebody besides me has a question. What is a standard multifamily?
So standard multifamily would be what I'll call market rate multifamily that is not in a TND, mixed use, mudroom, or TUD form of development, and is not affordable, and it's not age restricted. It's not a condo, it's not a townhome, it's what I'll call market rate apartments, basically, that are not in a mixed use form of development.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, the caller we had on the phone previously who dropped off is back on the phone. Can we take his call on this item?
It's going on this item.
Yes. He had dropped off, he had gotten disconnected, and he reconnected.
Okay, we don't have a motion yet, so I don't think, do we, or did you make a motion, Mike?
I did not yet.
Okay, all right. Okay, yeah, Gus, go ahead.
Okay, so we'll put him on.
Okay.
Sir, would you please state your name and your address for the record?
Sure. My name is Eric Garduno. I am representing the Bay Area Apartment Association. Our address is PO Box 151958, Tampa, Florida 33684, and I'm speaking regarding agenda item P3.
Okay, and we're going to have the clerk swear you in.
Okay.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
And your 3 minutes will start now.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Planning Commission members. Really appreciate this opportunity to speak before you. As noted, I'm representing the Bay Area Apartment Association. We're a not-for-profit trade association representing the apartment industry in the Tampa Bay area. I am going to focus my comments specifically on removal of incentives for multifamily construction in the urban, suburban, and rural standard categories. I believe my colleague is also online, and she'll talk about the affordable housing portion of the ordinance. We do have concerns about the removal of the incentives. Generally, incentives like these do encourage additional investment in multifamily development, more apartment units out there. The less rent pressures there are generally for everybody in the county, and so removing incentives could have an unfortunate consequence on just raising prices that I don't think anybody would like to see. But more importantly, I think, looking at what it's doing, it's removing incentives on 3 specific categories for multifamily, while not doing anything about dozens of other categories that are in the code, categories that deal with things like fast food restaurants, tire stores, categories in there, and we're the only ones being singled out. Seems a bit unfair and arbitrary. And we're at least as important to have more multifamily as, say, another fast food restaurant. But on top of that, I'd also say one of the things that we took away from the workshop back in February, where this ordinance was discussed, that the data presented during that workshop actually indicates that 80% of the mobility fees being collected come from the urban, 20% from suburban, and 0 from rural. So that tells us that actually the incentives haven't been very effective in the suburban and not at all effective in the rural categories. So if anything, we'd ask the commission to consider actually increasing incentives in those areas. I think of the data that we have available to us through market data research suggests the same thing. The latest information we have from a source called CoStar says that of all the apartment units that are being developed, have recently been developed, or are in planning stages for development, they're all in the urban areas except for one. So indeed, I think the data points or suggest that if anything should be done for the rural and suburban increases of incentives to actually spur investment, it makes a lot of sense.
Your time is up, sir. Your time is up, sir. Did you state that there was someone else on the line, or is it Ms. Wendy?
I believe one of my colleagues is also signed up.
Is she on the phone now, or because we don't have her waiting in the queue?
She should be signed up and in the queue. We were just communicating a moment ago that
There's no one else in our queue. Okay, there is a person in our queue, but could you at least tell us what the area code, not the person's number, just tell us the area code?
1 second. I have it programmed.
Because it doesn't match.
It's 813.
813. Okay, that's not the person we have in our queue. Okay, thank you, sir, for your comments.
Is there anybody else to speak then, Denise?
No, the person we have signed up is not matching the phone number of the person who is on the phone with us right now, who is waiting in the
Does
queue.
anybody on the board have questions or comments for board of staff or questions from the staff?
I have a question and comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Richard Tennell. I wanted to, I think just that whole mobility fee, there was a lot of time and effort put into it. Now it just seems like we're rushing through it it's been less than 4 months. So I think we need to maybe not rush through this and think about all the implications. And it seems like almost with the whack-a-mole, if you push one down, the other one's going to pop up. And just, I think we need to think about this a lot more. The other thing I had was a question of David, if I was going to vote on this or not.
David, is she going to vote on this?
I would say no. It's not affecting the school site. It's not affecting, not an increase in residential density. So I can't think how you would be voting on this.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
I do think that there is some merit to consider moving the date back a little bit. If we do end up approving this, I think probably it would be reasonable to give some of these people that would be unaware a little time to through the potential issues. I would be much more inclined to support it if it started at a later date.
Mr. Chair, before you make any motions, I don't want the caller who's on the line to not speak just because they may have called in a different number than they registered for. So can we ask the caller to identify who they are and see if it's the same person who registered?
Okay, we'll do that.
Wait.
Caller? Hello. Caller? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, caller, would you please state your name for the record and your address?
Yes, my name is Wendy, last name Milinkovich. Our address is PO Box 151958, Tampa 23684.
Okay, and we're going to have the clerk, swear you in.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, so help you God?
Did you hear that?
Hello?
It was a little bit muffled, I'm sorry.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, your 3 minutes will start now.
Good afternoon, Planning Commission members. Thank you for this opportunity to speak before you today. I am the Vice President of the Bay Area Apartment Association. I'm also a Regional Manager for Royal American Management. We manage apartment communities throughout the Tampa Bay region, including Pasco County. In addition to the points raised that I would like to make, according to the 2019 rental market study conducted by the Schwimberg Center for Housing Studies at the University of Florida, 29% of Pasco County population is considered low income and paying more than 30% of their income toward housing. This is clear indication that additional affordable housing is needed in our county. Despite this need, it is often a challenge to build affordable multifamily housing. Between increasing costs for land, labor, and materials that go into buildings and maintaining apartment communities, it is difficult to keep rent at a level that low-income households can afford without specific incentives provided by government. That is why we are grateful that the draft ordinance reduces mobility impact fees, changes the affordable multifamily construction. Mobility fees are reduced to zero across every zone within the county. According to the National Apartment Association, on average, 14 cents of every dollar charged in rent goes towards government taxes and fees. Reductions in fees could create
the margins that make the difference between a project being built or not. Providing incentives like these is an important proactive measure by local government. Thank you for your consideration, considering our concerns around this reduction of incentives for the market rate multifamily housing. And again, we applaud you for taking steps to better encourage affordable housing development in our county. Thank you.
Thank you for your call.
Okay. So, any more comments from our board? Questions of the staff?
Mr. Chairman, it's Chris Poole. I'll just go on the record stating that I'm in agreement with you that I would agree to this with the delayed effective.
Mr. Chairman? Hey, Michael Cox here. So I'm going to move for approval, finding it consistent with the comp plan, but recommending to the Board of County Commissioners with an effective date, January 1st, 2021.
Sounds much better to me.
I'll second Chris Poole.
Okay, so now we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion of the motion? All in favor by roll call signify by saying aye.
Jamie Girardi,
Aye.
Michael Cox,
Aye.
Peter Hansel,
Can't hear you, Peter. I couldn't. Turn your mic on. There you go.
Peter Hansel,
Say it again.
No.
No. Okay.
Roberto Saez,
Aye.
Christopher Poole,
Aye.
Chris Williams, Representative Richard Tonello, he's not here, and Chairman Charles Gray.
Yeah, Mr. Tonello is not voting on this item.
Okay, Chairman Charles Gray.
All right. So I guess the ayes have it. Sound good, Terry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And welcome home. Been away for a few days, huh? Okay, anything else from members of the board? If not, I guess we can adjourn, right? So Michael Cox made a motion to adjourn. I'm sorry, Denise, what? Denise?
Mention something to the Planning Commission members. Sorry about that. So for the entire month of June, the Planning Commission meetings will be held by virtual meeting. The Board of County Commissioners approved that yesterday. So just wanted to let you know that the Planning Commission meeting of June 4th and June 18th, I believe it is, both of those will be held by virtual meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. I think a motion to adjourn was made by Michael Cox. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Signify by saying aye. We don't need a roll call.
Aye.
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 Bye, everybody.
All right.
Good afternoon.
Weekend.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so the company we have here is called Infrastructure Management Services, IMS. And what they do is they collect data on roads and other infrastructure in the public right-of-way. The reason why they are here